Hi, I'm Tammy Ma, and welcome to the Mom of Many podcast. Hi, so today we're going to get started with a video from a parent of two small little girls, and let's see what she has to say.
Okay, TammyMa, this question is one that we keep struggling with over and over again, and it's what do you do if you have a child, older child, even 5, 6 years old, who does not want to go to sleep at night without you being in the room and staying in the room, and it comes and goes. So how would you handle that? And in general, what is a good bedtime routine or a good way to approach bedtime?
So thank you. That was a really good question. I appreciate it. It also reminded me of an email I got, so I'm going to read that together too, and maybe together with both of these parents' concerns, we can kind of cover a lot of ground today. So I got an email that says, "Dear Tammy Ma, we have 3 children. Our sons are 7 and 5. Our daughter is 2. Bedtime is a mess. Our boys take forever to calm down and settle, a million excuses to get out of bed despite our best efforts. Our 2-year-old has moved into a big girl bed and continually gets out of bed at night and comes out of her room. We've tried different methods, but nothing seems to work. My husband and I have started to dread night times as a result. The kids seem to be winning the battle, and it's getting worse, not better. Please help." That's a great question, too. So thank you for writing in, and thank you for videoing in. I really appreciate it. So I think I kind of want to start with kind of saying that one thing we want to do first is kind of eliminate any variables and what's going on in our kids' nighttime stuff, our nighttime routines. Let's make sure that they're going to bed at the same time every night, that they've had a good meal, they have had their needs met, they've drank water, they've gone to the bathroom, they've had if they're younger, it might be a prayer or a bedtime story. If they're older, they might need half an hour to wind down with a book in their bed. Whatever it looks like for your family, kind of establish a good bedtime routine that includes going to bed at a decent hour. Um, um, and so you can kind of, anybody can do a Google search and figure out how much time is an average time a 9-year-old needs to sleep every night, and you can go from there. So stick to that and have that. And I think I talked earlier about having a family framework, having a family um, mission statement and non-negotiables. And so if sleeping is one of your family's issues and bedtimes, then include that in your family non-negotiables. And so this is our expectation. You're gonna go to bed and you're gonna stay in bed. And this is what we do in our family. We don't get out of bed after we go to bed. And so you kind of use that language. And so I've seen it actually stop that simple family non negotiable rule put up on the wall with consequences has stopped kids from doing it, older kids, not little ones. And so I would say let your expectations be clear. A lot of times our kids, our responses are so arbitrary and so based on our emotions or what we're doing that day or our moods or what we're into that the kids get mixed messages from us. I mean, there may be sometime they come out of bed and you're like, "Oh, all right, come over here and sit and watch a movie with dad," and there's other times they get yelled at. I mean, like it's not, it's, you've got to establish a bedtime routine and you've got to stick to it. And when it's time to go to bed and you've said good night, that needs to be the end of it. There is no reason any child needs to come out of their bed unless there's an emergency. If there's if something really bad has happened, if they're really sick, if there's a fire, I mean, but as a rule, like they need to stay in their beds, right? That's just crazy that they don't, that kids don't, and it's not just these parents; it's so many parents, and I get it. My kids, man, they tried too. They definitely pressed the boundaries of that. So it's not every child is going to try to get away with more. So yes, that's one thing. But I think that we've gotten to a culture we get kind of confused. We know they should stay in bed, but then we second guess ourselves, right? How many of us have put our kids in bed and they come out and they're like, "But mom, I'm thirsty. I'm so thirsty." And you're like, "Well, they did have water half an hour ago, and maybe one more glass is not a bad idea." And others are like, "What? I know they're not really thirsty, but what can I do?" And they just kind of let them out. They kind of let them come out of bed, or they giggle and get out of bed, or they're cute. So our kids know our soft spots, right? I had one little girl. Her name was Manica, And she knew that I just, my soft spot was her, so she would come out of bed and just smile at me. And it's like everything inside of me just wants to melt. And she's just being all cute and everything. But like, I'm thinking, she needs to be in bed. Like, this is crazy. And so they know. They're like, they're really good at finding out and exploiting our soft spots. So there's all kinds of reasons why they get out of bed, and but most of the time, it's just a bad habit, and we just need a break. And how do we break it? That's what I'm going to talk. I'm going to give you really practical ideas. You make the rules really clear at bedtime. It is time to go to bed. And this in our family, we obey our parents. We go to bed on time, and you've had everything you've needed. All your needs met, and that's it. And so you go to bed. And so that's it for the older kids. So it needs to be really clear expectations, and they just need to obey. A lot of kids will actually listen if you make it a family rule. It's because it's arbitrary or because it doesn't seem to be followed through sometimes that it becomes something that's not mandatory for them. So that's kind of part of it. It's our fault for not. It's my fault. It's our fault for not communicating it really clearly. This is my expectation of you. And so I really, really want to go back to if you haven't heard that podcast, go listen to it and lay it down. That's your expectation. Think of your consequence and carry it through. And so that's a big part of it. Another part of it is kids sometimes develop a bad habit just because it's fun, and just because it's a way to kind of get what we want. And they don't want to go to bed. They don't want to miss anything. They don't want to miss out on what's happening in the family. Sometimes it's because they were scared one day, and you came and laid down with them, and then boom, a habit started forming. And then they may not even be scared. They might just be kind of playing along with those same kind of ideas because they know it works. And so the truth is, teach your kids. Let's say you have a 5-year-old or 4-year-old is scared to go to bed at night and cries and doesn't want to go to bed and cries and is scared of some unknown thing. Assuming there's always exceptions to the rules, but the rule most of the time is it's just a bad habit, and fear has kind of morphed into a bad habit. So rule out that there's nothing really to be scared of, and if there's not, which there probably isn't, just so you know that, just in case you're wondering, it's like 99% of the time there's nothing to be scared of. Then you need to lay it on your teach your child, okay, you know what, we're gonna pray, and we're gonna trust Jesus to be in our room, and we're good, and that's it, and you kind of let walk away. And so but I'm going to give you steps in a second. Don't worry, I'm not just saying it's that simple. But I guess it's laying down expectations and understanding that your child is actually just fine, and they can learn to self-soothe and self-cope and deal with things. You're not doing them any favors by laying in bed with them every night. In fact, you're doing the opposite. You're actually hurting your child. You're actually making your child become codependent, and it's exhausting. I mean, do you want to be in bed with your child every night? Or would you rather be, sitting out and watching, The Office? I mean, like, would you rather be hanging out with your family, the rest of the family, or do you want to be in your 3-year-old's bed every night, or in your 6-year-old's bed every night? Whatever it might be. And so, I guess I've had lots of questions like this. By the way, this is a really common question. So I'm guessing that this is going to apply to a lot of families. So understand that it's just a habit, and that you need to help break it. Lay down the consequences and expectations really clearly in a good family meeting when everybody's happy, And so talk about it through the daytime. Okay, don't forget, tonight's tonight. You're going to go to bed by yourself. You're a big girl now. You're 4 years old. You're going to go to bed by yourself. You don't need mom and dad anymore there. We're going to come pray with you, and it's going to be fine, and it's going to be awesome, and you're going to do great. And you just keep talking it up and setting them up for success instead of just springing it on them at the last minute when they've been dreaming and expecting you to lay in bed with them that night. So give them a heads up. Let them know what's coming. Tonight's the night. They're going to do it. And so now practical steps. And I'll kind of go back to the letter also in a second. But practical steps for I'm going to take a 3-year-old who's kind of in between toddler and childhood. You have a 3-year-old who refuses to stay in bed, gets out of bed. I've had that. Sometimes they're giggly and silly, and sometimes they're acting scared, and sometimes they're crying and making excuses, and sometimes they're just coming out of bed because they want to go to the potty, or they want a drink of water, or they forgot their favorite stuffed animal, or whatever it might be. Okay, so let's take that scenario in mind, and let's just kind of walk through it in like a really practical way. I hope this will be helpful to you. So you have a 3-year-old is complaining about going to bed for some reason. and we want to kind of, we want to kind of nip it in the bud. So um, it's time for bed. You've laid out the expectations. You said it clearly. You've told them the consequences, whatever it might be, and they can't get out of bed. And you built up to it all day long. Today's the day, and then you get them in bed, and they come out. There probably won't be a lot of consequences for a 3-year-old. That's going to be hard to communicate, but they come out of bed. And so what you do is understand that this is going to sound funny, but basically you just escort them back to bed. Pretty rough, not roughly, but pretty firm, and not warm at all. Like, I'm talking no eye contact, no talk, because when you give eye contact and you give talk and you give warmth, then you're basically feeding the beast. Don't feed the beast. Don't feed the beast, people. And so instead, you just kind of keep it very, very, very. Um, um, I don't know how to say it exactly, but just you kind of keep it firm, and you keep it a matter of fact, and you keep it non-emotional, and you keep it pretty formal. So you just take your daughter's hand, walk her right back to bed, put her in the bed, and then you don't say, "Good night, sweetie, I love you," but you might give them one reminder that first time. You might say, "We stay in our beds at night," and you just walk out. And you don't kiss them. You don't flip the switch off and say, "Mommy loves you. Good night, sweet dreams." Nothing. You don't say a word to them. Don't feed the beast. Don't say a word. Don't make eye contact with them. Don't give them anything, because if you give them attention of any kind, you're basically rewarding them for getting out of bed. And so you don't do that. You don't reward them. You don't give them anything. And so you escort them back to bed. Now, likely this is what's going to happen. They're either going to be they'll be a little confused for a second, and within minutes maybe they'll do it again. They'll get out of bed again. So they get out of bed again. They come out into the hall. They come out down where you're watching TV, and what do you do in that point? You've already said one time in this family we go to bed. We stay in our beds. The second time they do it, you don't say a word to them. You get up. You might take turns. If your spouses take turns, you walk over. Exactly the same response. You kind of escort them, put your hand on their shoulder, or take them. Don't even hold them by the hand. Take them by the wrist instead of holding them by the hand, and just walk them back to their room. Put them back in the bed. Don't cover them up. Don't pet them. Don't pat them on the head. Don't say good night. Don't say sweet dreams. Don't say I love you. Don't say stay in the bed. Don't say be a good girl. Stay in your bed tonight. Don't say a word. You are silent. You are absolutely unable to speak or make any kind of eye contact with them at all. And then you don't say a word, but you're firm. And what happens if you keep doing this, and you're going to keep doing it, by the way, for your first night, especially if it's a bad habit. You're going to keep doing it, and you're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, this is killing me." But no, it's not killing you. You're going to be fine. You're going to establish a new family rhythm that's going to save your life, and you're going to be so thankful. And then you're going to write me and tell me how it's changed your life. So take your child back to bed. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. You can do it 10 times. You can do it 20 times. You're not going to die. The first night you might battle this for 3 hours. The second night you might battle it for 1 hour. The third night you might battle it for 5 minutes. And fourth night or fifth night, it's going to be a thing of the past. Your child is going to get the message. It's when bedtime rolls around, it's time for bed. It's a non-negotiating, and it's that simple. And you can do it for all. You can do it for kids who are 6 years old. I think that one of the mom that wrote me said her sons were 7 and 5, and her daughter is 2. And so for the 7 and 5-year-old, laying out the consequences and the clear expectations is going to be a little easier. For the daughter who's 2, this method is going to work. Taking the child straight to bed, putting her back in the bed, no interaction, no warmth, no feedback, nothing bad, nothing good, no corrective words. You are just a zombie taking your child back to bed. And if you can do that, I promise you it will work. It's a very practical way to let your message get across to the kids that bedtime is bedtime. Um, so I really, really want to tell you that when you start doing it, you're going to be fed up, and you're not going to like it at all. And you're going to be like, this is not working. And then I promise you, if you do it consistently, within 1 week, it will be a thing of the past. I've seen it again and again. I've seen it with my own kids. I've seen it with other kids. It really, really, really works. And so the only way it doesn't work is if you stop doing it. So just remember, you're not going to feed them in any way. You're going to make sure all their needs are met. The bedtime routine is going to be early. It's going to be the same way every day. It's going to be at a decent hour. It's going to be And if they do, the little ones especially come out of bed, there's just a sense of like no interaction, straight back to bed. And your older ones, you can do the exact same thing, a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old. In that case, you can even be a little bit more firm, a little bit more business, and then you can give them the very first time. In our family, we don't get out of bed. This is your warning. There will be consequences, and the consequences can be whatever your family decides the next day. But this method actually will work with a 5-year-old. It will work with a 7-year-old. It will work with a 2-year-old. Just firm, unemotional, get back in the bed. And so I hope this helps. And again, I'm here for you. If you need to reach out to me, you can email and ask me your own questions. AskTammyMa@gmail.com or momofmany.us website. You can check that out. And there's a way to email me there too. And schedule a coaching session if you want. And let me know if it works for you. I really stand by it. And a lot of what I'm going to be doing on this podcast is similar stuff, just practical steps on how to help our kids conquer these things. And so, for the one who's laying the mom who videoed me in the first session, the first video, was basically you've got to like tuck her in, give her the same routine, tell her that tonight's the night, you're a big girl now, you don't need mom to sleep with you every night, and then you're going to do the same thing. You're going to be a very sweet and kind, and let her know, and then pray for her, love on her, give her a good night kiss, and you get up and leave the room. And so if your child is getting out of bed every 5 seconds, like your toddlers or whatever, you might not want to walk away back down the hall. You might stick a chair outside the door or something like that. If the child is really legitimately scared, there's some other things we can do, and I can talk about that another time. You can reach out to me and I can let you know. But most times it's just a really bad habit that came out of boredom or out of entertainment or out of fear or just out of sincere desire not to be missing out on the action. And maybe your kids have, some of them have fear of missing out, so a little FOMO. So whatever it is, the response can actually be the same. So I hope this has been helpful to you. Let me know if it is. And now for our next segment, Arumai-isms. They're funny sayings from my daughter over the years. She's here with me in the U.S. right now, and she has said some really funny stuff over the years. And so, that's where we're going to go. Here's another quote from the mind of Arumai. She was 7 years old at the time. She had been carrying something around and showing it and holding it in her pockets and putting it on all these secret places on her pillow for the past few days. It was like a piece of paper. And I asked her what it was. And I'd seen her walking around with it for a good 3 days. And it was just folded up a piece of paper. And then finally she said, "I can't show it to you. It's top secret." And I said, "Well, you've been carrying it around for like 3 days. Can you show me what it is?" And she said, "Well, it's top secret." And I said, "Well, just show me." And so she finally showed me. And it was a note, and it said, "Dear Father, my Father God, please can you get me a camera? I love cameras, and I love you. Love, Arumai." And then she told me how she'd been putting in all different places around her room every night in hopes that a camera would appear wherever she put the note. And so I reminded her that Jesus was not like the tooth fairy, which we don't even believe in over there. And he isn't like Santa, whom we also don't even practice over there. But he's real and he wants relationship. And he's not a magician who comes and brings toys and stuff when we put notes all around the room at night. I said you could write a note to him and he would love it, but he's not a magician to give you a toy whenever you write a note. And she sighed heavily and said, "I know all of this, what you're telling me. I know this, but I'm hoping it still works. After all, one thing I do know, Jesus is playful." And so I'm going to keep leaving the notes, she said. And then she said, after a couple of minutes, she said, "Do you think if I used cursive handwriting, it would work better?" And so there you go. Arumai-isms from the mind of Arumai, 7-year-old Arumai. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have questions, you can reach out to me at asktamma@gmail.com and send me videos. I'd love to answer your questions here on this show. So thank you for listening. Have a great day.